Let's start with the number 62. That's the age when the Social Security Administration first allows you to claim your retirement benefits. And for decades, the conventional wisdom has been simple. Don't do it. Wait. Be patient. The longer you delay, the more you get. End of story. Except it's not the end of the story. Not even close. Because here's what nobody tells you. 2/3 of Americans file before their full retirement age. 2/3. That's not a rounding error. That's not a fringe group making bad decisions. That's the majority of retirees in this country concluding, for reasons financial advisors often dismiss, that filing early made sense for them. Were they all wrong? Or is the standard advice missing something? I'd argue it's the latter. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what it's missing. We're going to build a real model, walk through the math that most videos get wrong, talk about the factor that changes the lifetime difference from $70,000 to $246,000, and then go through 7 specific situations where filing at 62 is not just defensible. It's arguably the smartest move you can make. This is the video I wish existed before I spent hours buried in actuarial tables, tax code, and Social Security filing strategy research. And yes, apparently there are over 700 distinct filing strategies. That number alone should tell you something about how complicated this decision actually is. Let's get into it. Before we touch any numbers, I want to give you a mental model that's going to make everything in this video click. Think of Social Security like a faucet connected to a pressurized pipe in the wall. That pipe has been pressurizing your entire working life. Every paycheck, every year of contributions, that's pressure building up in the pipe. And every year you wait past 62, the pressure builds further. By the time you reach 70, you've got maximum pressure. When you finally open the faucet, the water flows fast and hard. That's the case for waiting. But here's what the waiting argument leaves out. The faucet is yours. You paid for it. You paid into this system for 30, 40, maybe even 50 years. And if you wait too long to open it, some of that water never gets used. It evaporates. Nobody gives you a refund on the pressure you built up. You just lose it. The entire Social Security timing debate is a question of when you open the faucet. And the standard advice, wait, delay, be patient, treats that as a simple optimization problem with one right answer. It isn't, and here's why. Let me introduce a fictional character I'll call Professor Pat. Pat is 62 years old. He earned $90,000 in his final working year, which is roughly half the current Social Security wage cap, a realistic upper-middle-class income. Pat has 3 filing options in front of him. Option 1. File at 62 and receive approximately $2,238 per month. Option 2. Wait until his full retirement age of 67 and receive around $3,198 per month. Option 3. Delay all the way to 70 and collect $3,966 per month. Now, the classic way to analyze this is through what's called a break-even calculation. You figure out which option puts more total dollars in your pocket by the time you die. File early and you get smaller checks for more months. File late and you get bigger checks for fewer months. Somewhere in the early to mid-80s, those 2 lines cross. That crossing point is your break-even age. Simple, right? Here's where it starts getting complicated. Most people run this analysis using an average life expectancy of around 79 years. That's the figure that gets cited most often. But 79 is average life expectancy from birth. It accounts for people who die young, accidents, illness, infant mortality across the full population. If you've already made it to age 62 without a major health catastrophe, you've already beaten a lot of that early risk. The Social Security Administration's own actuarial data suggests that someone reaching age 62 in reasonable health has an expected lifespan of closer to 84 years, not 79. That 5-year difference changes everything. If Pat lives to 84 and we use a zero inflation adjustment for simplicity, filing at 62 produces roughly $615,000 in total lifetime benefits. Waiting until 67 actually produces less, because even with the higher monthly payment, there are fewer months to collect it. Filing early wins by approximately $72,000. But, and this is critical, change that life expectancy assumption by just 3 years. Drop it from 84 to 81. Suddenly, filing at 67 becomes the better play. Drop it further to 78, and the difference between filing at 62 versus 67 nearly disappears. In that scenario, the mathematically optimal filing age is actually around 65, right in the middle. Here's what that tells us. The break-even analysis is extremely sensitive to a variable you cannot know with certainty. And that variable is how long you're going to live. This is the core of the problem. You think you're deciding between early and late. You're actually deciding under fundamental uncertainty. And that changes the nature of the decision entirely. Now I want to introduce the variable that almost every basic Social Security video gets wrong or ignores entirely. It's called the cost of living adjustment, or COLA. Every year, the Social Security Administration adjusts benefits to account for inflation. In years with high inflation, that adjustment can be significant. We saw adjustments of 5, 6, even 8% in recent years. Even in normal times, it typically runs 2 to 3% annually. Here's why that matters so much to the timing decision. Your COLA increase is calculated as a percentage of your base benefit. And if your base benefit is higher because you delayed, every annual increase is also larger, in absolute dollar terms. Think about compound interest. A 3% raise on $3,966 is $119 per month in additional income. A 3% raise on $2,238 is $67 per month. Same percentage. But over decades, that $52 monthly gap compounds dramatically. When you go back and run the lifetime analysis with realistic COLA assumptions built in, the picture shifts dramatically. The total lifetime difference between filing at 62 versus waiting until 70, which looked like $70,000 or so in a simple no-inflation model, expands to approximately $246,000 when you factor in realistic annual adjustments. That is a completely different decision. $70,000 is a factor. $246,000 is potentially life-changing. And most people making this decision have no idea that number exists because they're using a simplified calculator that doesn't account for inflation. So now you have two big complications. You don't know how long you'll live, and the inflation compounding effect heavily favors waiting. Those two forces push in opposite directions, which is exactly why this decision is so personal. With all of that context established, let's talk about the 7 situations where filing at 62 is genuinely the right call. Reason 1. Your health is genuinely compromised. This is the most obvious case, but people still feel uncomfortable saying it directly. If your personal health history or your family's medical history points toward a shorter than average lifespan, a parent who died in their early 70s, a serious cardiac event behind you, a chronic condition with a long-term prognosis, the break-even math shifts decisively in favor of filing early. Waiting for a bigger monthly check doesn't help you if you're not alive long enough to collect it. If your pipe is leaking, you open the faucet. You extract value from a system you spent decades paying into, and you do it while you still can. Reason 2. You want to actually enjoy your retirement. This one gets dismissed as emotional reasoning. It shouldn't be. The evidence on retirement spending patterns is clear. People spend the most in the early, active years of retirement, what researchers call the go-go years. Spending gradually declines through the middle, slow-go years, and drops significantly in the final, no-go years, often due to health limitations or reduced mobility. $1 at 63 is not the same as $1 at 79, not because of inflation, but because what you can do with it is completely different. Travel, adventure, physical activity, the experiences you've been deferring for decades, those have a window. And that window is earlier in retirement, not later. Optimizing purely for maximum lifetime dollar extraction at the expense of the years when you're most capable of using that money is a math win and a life loss. That's a trade worth thinking about carefully. Reason 3. Your spouse can access spousal benefits. Here's a coordination opportunity that gets overlooked constantly. If your spouse has a limited work history or a significantly lower individual benefit than you, they may be eligible for spousal benefits equal to up to 50% of your full retirement age benefit. But they cannot access those spousal benefits until you file. Your filing is the key that unlocks that income stream. In households with a significant earnings disparity between partners, this can represent years of additional income that simply never gets claimed because the higher earner is focused only on their own break-even calculation. Social Security planning for married couples is a joint strategy, not two independent decisions. Reason 4. Your spouse has a serious health condition and a high benefit. This is the most counterintuitive scenario on the list, and in many ways, the most financially important. Here's how it works. When a spouse passes away, the surviving partner is entitled to inherit their benefit, known as the survivor benefit. If your spouse is the higher earner, but is dealing with a serious or terminal health condition, the expected timeline on that survivor benefit becomes a central planning factor. The optimal strategy in this scenario is often file on your own lower benefit at 62, collect that income while your spouse is alive, and then transition to the larger survivor benefit when the time comes. You collect something rather than nothing during the interim period, and you still end up on the higher benefit eventually. I'll make this concrete with a real number scenario. Take a woman named Sandra. She's 62, recently retired, married to a husband who is 65 with a higher benefit, but a serious heart condition. Sandra's benefit at 62 is $2,100 per month. Her husband's full retirement age benefit is $3,600 per month. If Sandra waits until 67, she'd receive $2,900, an $800 monthly increase. But her husband passes away at 69. If Sandra had waited, she would have collected zero of her own benefit for 7 full years before switching to her husband's survivor benefit anyway. By filing at 62, she collected approximately $176,000 in her own benefits during those 7 years before making that switch. $176,000 that would have otherwise been left completely uncollected. The faucet was there. She just had to turn it on. Reason 5. The stock market just crashed. This one is rarely discussed outside of academic Social Security research, and it deserves far more attention. If you're already drawing down your investment portfolio in retirement and the market drops 40 or 50%, selling assets at depressed prices to cover living expenses is one of the most damaging things that can happen to your long-term financial health. It's called sequence of returns risk, and it can permanently impair a retirement plan that looked fine on paper. Filing for Social Security early during a significant market downturn creates a guaranteed income floor. It reduces or eliminates the need to liquidate investments at their lowest point. It gives your portfolio time to recover. The faucet becomes a pressure release valve, not for spending, but for your investment strategy. And if you haven't yet started drawing on your portfolio when the market drops, turning on Social Security provides income you can direct straight into discounted equities. You're buying assets at a significant discount, funded by guaranteed government income. That's a genuinely intelligent move that tends to look obvious in hindsight. Reason 6. Tax planning, the tax torpedo. Up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can become taxable income, depending on your total annual income from all sources. But the planning angle here is about timing. After age 73, you're required to take minimum distributions from traditional retirement accounts. Those distributions count as income. If your Social Security benefit is already running by then, Those distributions push your total income higher and can significantly increase the portion of your benefit that gets taxed. But here's the opportunity. If you're in a period of temporarily low income, recently retired, between jobs, or in the gap before required distributions begin, your Social Security income right now might be taxed at a very low rate or not at all. Filing during that low-income window lets you collect years of benefits at favorable tax treatment before the required distribution flood raises your taxable income permanently. In the right circumstances, filing early is a tax management decision as much as a retirement income decision. Reason 7. You need the money. I'm going to say this plainly and without judgment because it applies to more people than want to say it out loud. Life doesn't follow the plan. Medical expenses arrive unexpectedly. Businesses fail. Pension promises disappear. Family members need support. The job you thought you had for 3 more years evaporates. Social Security was designed precisely for these moments. It is a foundational safety net built into the fabric of the retirement system. Using it when you need it is not a failure of planning. It is the entire point of the system. If you need it, use it. Here's the honest conclusion. There are absolutely scenarios where waiting makes more sense. If you're in strong health, have significant savings, and your spouse also has a high individual benefit, the combination of COLA compounding and a longer collection horizon can produce lifetime benefits that are dramatically higher by waiting. That $246,000 gap is real, and it matters. Delaying Social Security to 70 is functionally equivalent to earning a guaranteed 8% annual return on deferred benefits. That's a benchmark most investment portfolios don't reliably beat over the long term. For the right person, in the right circumstances, waiting is clearly the superior choice. But the right question is never simply early or late. The right question is, which of these 7 conditions apply to your life right now?